Hello everyone and welcome to another MCAT ACE lecture. In today's lecture we are going to review the endocrine system. In particular, we are going to discuss the functions of the endocrine system, discuss how endocrine system can work in conjunction with the nervous system, describe the definition of hormones, which is that their products is being released into the blood supply, discuss regulation of the hormonal activity by second messenger system, and then finally go over the major endocrine glands, discuss their names, their locations, hormone products, and then the function of each one of these hormones. All right, so let's start with the lecture. First, discussing the neuroendocrinology. Basically, neuroendocrinology is a study of the interaction between the nervous system and the endocrine system, because both of these systems will regulate, they would release molecules that will regulate different body organs. But in particular, the nervous system and endocrine system are interacting closely. And an example is the hypothalamus that acts on the pituitary gland, and then pituitary gland can act on different endocrine glands. Like for instance, it can act on the thyroid gland, or it can act on the adrenal cortex. All right, so here we have the nervous system that will activate the endocrine system. And then the products of these endocrine glands can provide a negative feedback to these nervous tissues and tell them, hey, I've got enough hormone products, stop your stimulation signal. And so this way there is a bi-directional activity where the nervous system can activate the adrenal gland, can activate the endocrine glands, and then the endocrine glands can send signal back to control their own activation. All right, now let's talk about the difference between the nervous system and the endocrine system in controlling, or in other words, in regulating different body organs. So the nervous system is releasing neurotransmitters which are released in the synaptic cleft, and so therefore they have to travel a short distance in order to act on the synaptic receptors, versus the endocrine glands that are releasing hormones into blood. And so now the hormones can travel a long distance and go to different sites. One example is, for instance, insulin that is being secreted by pancreas. It's being released into blood, and now it can travel all the way to different muscles and adipose tissues to tell them, hey, we got too much sugar in our blood, absorb some of this glucose so that the blood sugar can go down. So that's one main difference between hormones and neurotransmitters. Now, the effects that hormones can induce include, for instance, change in the level of protein synthesis, or change in the level of enzymatic activity. It can affect the secretory activity. It can affect the cell permeability by inducing activity of different channels. And it can also change the rate of different cellular activities, like for instance, mitosis. All right, so here I have a table that summarizes the difference between the nervous system and the endocrine system. So both of these systems release mediator molecules. Nervous system is releasing neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft that are acting on postsynaptic membrane. So there is only a short distance that is being traveled by neurotransmitters, versus the endocrine system that releases hormones in blood, and they can travel a long distance until they reach their destination. Now, the difference in terms of the timing for the onset of action, it will take only a few milliseconds for the nervous system to induce its effects, versus the endocrine system can take from few seconds up to a few hours or even days until the effects are induced. And then these responses of the hormones is always involuntary, versus the nervous system, it could be inducing either voluntary or involuntary responses. Now, regarding the duration of action, nervous system duration of action is very short, because it all depends on the lifespan of the neurotransmitter in the synaptic cleft, versus with the endocrine system, the lifespan of hormones is a little longer, and so it can induce a long-term effects. Now, the next topic I would like to discuss is the difference between exocrine and endocrine glands. So you might have heard that sometimes we are referring to exocrine cells and sometimes we are referring to endocrine cells, but what is the difference between these two cells? And a good example is pancreas, which has both exocrine cells and endocrine cells.